Harry Styles is one of the most beloved stars on the planet. From his early days in One Direction to his evolution into a solo icon, he has built a reputation not only as a singer, but as a fashion rebel, an actor, and a cultural phenomenon. Fans see him as untouchable, the charming, stylish, endlessly talented man who seems to have it all. But what if, behind the dazzling smile and the designer suits, there was a secret he has worked hard to keep hidden? For years, Harry has been praised for his confidence and openness. But like every celebrity, there are chapters of his life that remain locked away. Stories that never made the headlines, truths that were buried under the glitter of fame. Now whispers are growing louder. Insiders hint at a secret from Harry's past that could completely change the way fans see him. It's not about a scandal in the tabloids or a fleeting rumor. It's about something deeper, something that touches the very core of who he is and how he built the life he lives today. So what is Harry Styles' darkest secret, and why is it only being revealed now? The answers may shock you. From dream to pressure cooker. The making of Harry Styles' secret. When Harry Styles first auditioned for the X Factor in 2010, he was just a teenager with dimples, floppy hair, and a dream. He stood on that stage and sang Stevie Wonder's Isn't She Lovely, a performance that wasn't perfect but carried a spark, the kind of spark that makes judges lean in and think there's something here. Simon Cowell saw it immediately. He saw not just Harry, but the potential of combining Harry with 4 other boys to create what would become One Direction, one of the biggest boy bands in history. Overnight, Harry went from a small-town bakery worker in Cheshire to a global superstar. The band's success was meteoric. Sold-out arenas, screaming fans, #1 albums, and the kind of fame that very few people on Earth ever experience. But behind the screaming crowds and polished performances was a very different reality, one that Harry has only hinted at in interviews. It was a reality of relentless schedules, strict control, and personal sacrifices that few could imagine. The dark secret hidden within Harry's story begins here, in the early days of One Direction. To the world, he was living the dream. To Harry, he was barely surviving. The band's image was tightly controlled. Every hairstyle, every outfit, every answer in interviews was curated by management to fit the mold of a marketable boy band. Harry, the youngest of the group, quickly became the cute one, the heartthrob marketed toward millions of teenage girls. That label stuck to him like glue. It sold magazines and tickets, but it also reduced him to a caricature. He wasn't Harry the person, he was Harry the product. The secret weight he carried was the pressure of losing himself in the process. Fame came so fast and so intensely that Harry barely had time to process who he was before the world decided for him. Fans saw the smiles, the cheeky comments, the charm. What they didn't see were the sleepless nights, the constant travel, the lack of privacy, and the feeling of being trapped inside an identity built for profit. Harry has since admitted that during those years, he struggled with anxiety, though at the time he rarely spoke about it publicly. Imagine being 16 years old and suddenly being told you're responsible for an empire. Every move you make is photographed. Every mistake you make is broadcast. Every relationship you have is dissected. For Harry, who was still figuring out his own identity, the pressure was suffocating. There were also darker elements behind the scenes. The kind of truths most boy band fans never hear. Contracts dictated their lives. They had little control over their schedules, their music, even their image. For Harry, this meant burying parts of himself just to survive in the machine. Fans adored him, but few realized how much of Harry was hidden away in order to fit into the role designed for him. That hidden part, the secret self, is what haunted him. The constant speculation about his personal life added to the weight. Tabloids linked him with every woman he stood next to, painting him as a womanizer before he was even 18. At first, it seemed harmless, part of the boy band fantasy. But for Harry, it was damaging. He has since revealed how uncomfortable it was to have his relationships and his sexuality turned into public entertainment. Behind closed doors, he was just a teenager trying to navigate love, heartbreak, and identity. In public, he was a character written by strangers. The darkest secret, though, wasn't a scandal or a single event. It was the private battle he fought with the disconnect between who he really was and who the world thought he was. This wasn't the kind of secret you could expose with a photo or a leaked story. It was the quiet, gnawing reality of being trapped in a role that never felt fully his. For years, he carried that silently, smiling for the cameras while privately wondering if he'd ever break free. When One Direction eventually went on hiatus in 2016, Harry finally had the chance to step away. But stepping away wasn't just about rest. It was about confronting the secret he'd been carrying since he was a teenager, that the version of Harry the world loved was only part of the truth. He wanted more than to be the cute one from One Direction. He wanted to make music that reflected who he was, not who a contract told him to be. He wanted to explore fashion, to act, to create freely without being boxed in. Most importantly, he wanted to live authentically, without hiding the pieces of himself that never fit into the boy band mold. In later interviews, Harry has hinted that this period of transition was both liberating and terrifying. He knew the world expected a certain version of him, the safe, smiling heartthrob. But he also knew he couldn't live that way forever. The secret weight he had carried was threatening to crush him if he didn't make a change. So with his first solo album, Harry stepped into the light not as a product, but as an artist. The music was more raw, more experimental, more him. The fashion became bolder, the persona freer. For the first time, fans were meeting the Harry Styles he had kept hidden. But make no mistake, the scars of his early fame didn't vanish. At 29, 30, and now 31, Harry has admitted that the pressure still lingers. The darkest secret isn't that he lived some scandalous double life. It's that for years he wasn't allowed to live his own life at all. What fans are finally seeing now, as he opens up in interviews and through his music, is a man reclaiming the identity he was forced to hide. Harry Styles' darkest secret was never about a headline-worthy scandal. It was about silence. The silence of hiding his anxiety, his identity, and his true self behind a smile crafted for the cameras. It was about the years he spent feeling like a product instead of a person. And in 2025, as he stands as one of the biggest stars in the world, that secret is no longer hidden. He's exposing it himself piece by piece, song by song, showing that even global icons carry shadows behind their light. The price of fame, identity, relationships, and the shadow of perfection. When Harry Styles left One Direction to pursue his solo career, fans assumed the hardest part of his journey was over. He had escaped the boy band machine, shaken off the control of strict contracts, and finally gained the freedom to be his own artist. But the truth is, stepping into the spotlight alone didn't erase the weight he carried. It only magnified it. With freedom came new pressure, and with new pressure came the resurfacing of the same secret he had been forced to bury for years. The struggle to reconcile who he really was with who the world wanted him to be. His debut album in 2017 was a statement. The music was different from anything One Direction had produced. Songs like Sign of the Times revealed a darker, more introspective side of Harry, a side that didn't fit neatly into the boy-next-door heartthrob image. Critics praised the album's maturity, but behind the praise was an unspoken tension. Could Harry truly be himself? Or would the industry once again force him into a mold? For Harry, the fear wasn't about whether the album would succeed. It was about whether he could survive the vulnerability of putting his authentic self out there for the first time. And that vulnerability didn't end with his music. The spotlight on his personal life grew brighter. Every woman he dated, every hand he held, every late-night paparazzi photo became a global headline. His relationships were turned into entertainment, fueling tabloids and gossip sites. To the world, Harry was a charming ladies' man. But Harry himself has since admitted that those portrayals were exaggerated and often false. The narrative of the womanizer was not only inaccurate, it was damaging. He was being boxed into another identity that didn't feel like his own. And once again, he found himself trapped by an image created by others. One of the darkest aspects of this period was the ongoing speculation about his sexuality. Harry's fluid sense of style, his bold fashion choices, his rejection of gender norms made him a target for endless rumors. Was he gay? Was he bisexual? Was he straight but playing with image? For Harry, the speculation was suffocating. He wanted to explore fashion and art without being forced to provide a label for his identity. But in the public's eyes, everything he wore, every gesture he made, was interpreted as a coded message. His silence only fueled more speculation, leaving him stuck in a cycle where he couldn't win. Speak out and risk being defined by a label, or stay quiet and be accused of hiding something. That silence became its own kind of secret. Harry wasn't hiding a scandal. He was hiding the fact that he didn't want to be boxed in at all. He has said in interviews that he doesn't feel the need to define his sexuality publicly because it's his personal business. Yet the pressure to explain himself, to provide clarity for the world, weighed heavily on him. Behind the polished smiles and designer suits was a man fighting for the right to live authentically without having to justify it. That fight, for many years, was his darkest secret. The stress of this dual existence, being authentic yet constantly misunderstood, took a toll on Harry's mental health. Though he rarely spoke about it during his early solo years, he later acknowledged his struggles with anxiety. Performing in front of thousands of fans may have looked effortless, but backstage, Harry often battled nerves and panic. The pressure to always be on, always be charming, always be perfect was relentless. His team, his fans, and the media all expected him to deliver magic every time. For Harry, the perfection was an illusion. The reality was sleepless nights, the weight of expectations, and the gnawing fear that he might never be enough. As his solo career soared, Grammy wins, sold-out stadium tours, acclaimed acting roles, the whispers of his secret grew louder. People began to notice that Harry, despite his fame, remained intensely private. He gave few interviews. He rarely addressed rumors. He shared glimpses of himself through his music, but even those glimpses were layered with metaphor and mystery. It was as if he was telling the world, "You can know me through my art, but you'll never fully know me." That distance wasn't arrogance, it was survival. After years of being stripped bare by fame, Harry learned that secrecy was the only way to protect what was left of himself. But secrecy comes with its own price. Fans who adored him also longed for transparency. The media demanded answers. And so the cycle continued. Harry trying to live authentically without labels. The world trying to force him into one. This tension has followed him for his entire career, creating a shadow that even success can't erase. His relationships during this period only fueled the narrative further. High-profile romances with models, actresses, and influencers became constant tabloid fodder. Every smile, every kiss, every breakup was dissected endlessly. What fans didn't see was the toll this took on Harry as a person. For him, relationships weren't just about love or connection. They were about survival in a world that wouldn't leave him alone. Being with someone meant risking their privacy too, dragging them into the same spotlight he couldn't escape. That reality made intimacy difficult. How do you love freely when millions of strangers are watching, judging, and speculating about every move you make? The deeper secret here wasn't who Harry dated or how he identified. The secret was how much he struggled to balance his need for authenticity with the crushing demands of fame. He wanted to be open, to live without fear, but the machine of celebrity made it nearly impossible. Behind the flawless performances and glossy magazine covers, Harry was navigating a constant tug-of-war between who he was and who the world wanted him to be. By the early 2020s, Harry began leaning into freedom more boldly. His fashion choices, dresses, pearls, nail polish, flamboyant suits, became statements of defiance. His music, increasingly introspective, revealed more of his heart. But even then, the shadows remained. The darkest secret of his solo years was not something scandalous, but something profoundly human. The pain of being misunderstood, the exhaustion of being defined by labels, and the loneliness of being worshipped by millions, yet truly known by very few. This is the paradox of Harry Styles. To the world, he is effortless charm and perfection, but to himself, he has long been a man carrying the heavy burden of being a product of fame, of constantly hiding pieces of himself to survive. That is the secret he has finally begun to expose. Not through tabloids or gossip, but through his art, his honesty, and his refusal to play by the old rules anymore. Exposing the truth. Harry in 2025 and beyond. By 2025, Harry Styles is no longer just the boy band heartthrob or the chart-topping solo artist. He has become something larger, a cultural icon, a symbol of individuality, a reminder that authenticity can be revolutionary. But with that new status has also come a reckoning. For the first time in his career, Harry has begun to speak openly about the pressures, the struggles, and the shadows that defined his past. In doing so, he is exposing the truth of his darkest secret. not as a scandal, but as a story of survival. The secret Harry carried for so long was never about betrayal, hidden crimes, or salacious headlines. It was about the weight of an identity he didn't choose. For years, Harry lived as a product of an industry that demanded he smile, sing, charm, and conform to an image created by others. He kept his anxiety hidden, his private doubts locked away, his personal identity guarded like treasure. To the world, he looked effortless. Inside, he was often exhausted, misunderstood, and terrified of losing himself. That was the burden he carried quietly through the heights of his fame. Now, in 2025, Harry is finally exposing that truth on his own terms. In interviews, on stage, and in his art, he has admitted what he once kept secret, that fame nearly consumed him, that perfection is an illusion, and that the boy the world thought they knew was only a fraction of who he really is. One of the clearest ways Harry has revealed this is through his music. His recent albums are layered with lyrics about vulnerability, longing, and self-doubt. Where early songs were polished and safe, his newer work feels raw, confessional, and unafraid to sit in the darkness. Fans who listen closely can hear the echoes of his hidden battles. The weight of expectation, the desire for freedom, the fear of being trapped by labels. In these songs, Harry is no longer hiding. He's telling the story himself, letting music reveal what tabloids could never capture. Fashion, too, has become part of his exposure. Once criticized for wearing dresses, pearls, or flamboyant colors, Harry has turned those choices into a declaration. He will not be defined by anyone else's rules. The secret he once carried, the fear of being misunderstood, is now something he embraces. He dares the world to misunderstand him because in that defiance lies his freedom. By dressing as he pleases, he's showing that the real Harry was never the safe, packaged boy band star. The real Harry is fluid, experimental, and unwilling to let others dictate how he should present himself. Another place where Harry has exposed his truth is in his conversations about mental health. While he was once silent about the anxiety that plagued him, in recent years he has begun speaking openly. He admits to panic attacks, to stage fright, to the suffocating fear that he wouldn't live up to expectations. For fans, these revelations are shocking because Harry always appeared calm and charming. But for Harry, revealing these struggles is liberating. The secret that weighed him down, that he wasn't perfect, that he was human, is finally out in the open. And by sharing it, he's turning vulnerability into strength. In 2025, Harry has also begun to address what it means to live authentically without labels. For years, the world has speculated endlessly about his sexuality. He refused to give them an answer, not because he was hiding, but because he believed the answer was nobody's business but his own. Today, that refusal has become a statement in itself. By refusing to define himself publicly, Harry is exposing a larger truth. Identity doesn't need to be explained or justified to anyone. His darkest secret, the fear of being boxed in, is now the very foundation of his message. He doesn't want to be boxed in. He won't be boxed in. What makes Harry's exposure in 2025 so powerful is that it isn't about shocking revelations. It's about honesty. It's about telling the world that behind the glitter and the glamour, he struggled. He doubted himself. He questioned who he was. And he knows that millions of fans face the same struggles every day. In exposing his truth, he is also giving them permission to expose theirs. And yet, despite the heavy themes, Harry doesn't frame his story as tragedy. He frames it as growth. He has said that the pressures of his youth shaped him, that the darkest moments gave him the resilience to stand on his own today. If his secret once felt like a burden, now it feels like a gift, because it gave him the courage to break free, to redefine himself, and to inspire others to do the same. As he looks to the future, Harry seems determined to keep pushing boundaries. Whether through music, fashion, or film, he continues to explore parts of himself the world has never seen. The boy band star who once smiled through pain is now a man who embraces vulnerability as power. He is exposing his truth not with shame, but with pride. For fans, this shift is both emotional and empowering. They see not just an idol, but a human being who has walked through the fire of fame and emerged stronger. They see someone who proves that secrets, when exposed, don't always destroy you. Sometimes they set you free. The darkest secret Harry Styles carried wasn't scandal. It wasn't betrayal. It was the silence of living a life that didn't feel fully his. In 2025, that silence has been broken, and in its place, Harry is building a legacy that will outlast the headlines, the rumors, and even the music. His legacy will be this: the courage to be himself, no matter how many people tried to tell him otherwise. Harry Styles' darkest secret was never about scandal. It was about silence. For years, he carried the weight of being shaped into an image he didn't choose, hiding his anxiety, his doubts, and the truth of who he was behind a smile that the world demanded. At 31 in 2025, he's no longer hiding. He's reclaiming his story through his music, his fashion, his words, and his refusal to be boxed in. What makes his journey so powerful is not the fame, not the awards, not the records broken. It's the fact that he dared to admit what so many people fear, that even in the spotlight, you can feel trapped, and that sometimes the bravest act is to expose the truth, that you're human, vulnerable, and still finding your way. Harry Styles is no longer just the boy we thought we knew. He's the man who teaches us that our darkest secrets don't define us. The courage to reveal them does. But what do you think? Has Harry finally broken free from the cage of fame, or will the pressure of perfection always haunt him? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories behind the headlines.